That'll be the last in this series, and I hope you've enjoyed it. I've gotten a lot from this, just studying these lessons on there's war going on. James chapter 4 is where we'll start off this morning. I ask you just to follow along. And I think there's a lot of good things that we can talk about this morning as we consider the idea of resisting Satan. So humble yourselves before God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. I want to ask you right out of the gate this morning, do you resist Satan? I mean, honestly, do you actively fight against him? I want you to think on this for just a moment, because you hear that old saying, and some people think it's from the Bible, but it's actually just an old quote, and I don't know really where it came from, but it says, God helps those who help themselves. Okay? And I want you to think on that for just a moment. Because what happens a lot of times is we get into life, we get into our regular stride, and we're going along, everything's going pretty well. And then all of a sudden we hit a bump. And then all of a sudden when we hit that bump, we kind of go back and say, hey, you know what? I really need God now. I mean, everything's been going good. I've kind of put him over here in the corner. I haven't really paid a whole lot of attention to him. Maybe I go to church one Sunday out of 4. Maybe I never go to life group, anything like that. I don't associate with Christians. But all of a sudden, boom, I hit the bump. Hey, whoa. I need it. I need it now, right? And we start to think about things, and we start to hear some of the things that people have said to us from time to time. Being in ministry for 21 years, people have talked to me sometimes and said, hey, Manny, we need an hour or two. Sit down and talk to you about our marriage. We're in big time trouble. Well, how long has this been going on? Probably about 14 years. We figure we get an hour with you. Hey, we'll maybe work this thing out. Hey, and we really need some help teaching our kids some manners. Okay, what's going on with your kids? Well, they're 35 and 33. And you know what I'm saying? I mean, that's kind of the way it is a lot of times. We hit a battle, we get into trouble, we want it now. But if we aren't going to do what we can to hang in there with God and sustain our faith on an ongoing basis, when things are going really well, when it's just day-to-day stuff, then most likely when we hit those bumps in life, when we go through those valleys, the faith that we have, because we're only showing up once a month, because the fact that I'm not really involved in the community, because Jesus is not really super important to me, then when I hit those valleys, most likely that faith is not going to sustain me. You see, we may dodge Satan here, we may dodge him there, but sooner or later, if that's the way that we live, we are going to pay for not protecting ourselves, for not putting forth the effort that he has called us to. Sooner or later, Satan's going to get us. My buddy John is the priest up here at the Episcopal Church, and they have these vows that they take. I don't know how often they do this. I don't know if it's quarterly or bi-yearly or whatever it is, but every so often he will remind the congregation. I don't know if you've ever been to an Episcopal service or not, but it's kind of a pretty formal service, and a lot of times the priest will say something, or whoever's presiding over the service, and the congregation will give feedback. So when he does these vows, he was just telling me a couple weeks ago when we were at lunch, he said, I do these vows and I ask people, will you continue to do this? And he said, and this is the way that they respond. With God's help, I will. And I thought, wow, man. I mean, that's not revolutionary. That's not anything that's that I've never heard before. But with him putting it out there like that and just making me think about it in the way that I did, I was like, man, that's it. Because how much time are we putting forth in this fight? How much effort are we putting forth? That's just us. I'm just doing this. God, yeah, I got this. I'm going to do this. But the reality is, what we don't understand so many times is, with God's help, I can. With God's help, I can overcome. With God's help, this marriage can be restored. With God's help, this relationship with my brother or sister can see new life. And that's what I want us to understand as we talk about the idea of resisting Satan. We're not getting in this fight by ourselves and God's saying, hey, good luck, Hoss. Hope it goes well. No. We have the most powerful force that has ever existed in us every day. And so many of us are walking through life unempowered. Why? Because we don't turn to the source that is available to us. So I want us to think about that as we consider this idea of resisting Satan. There's several things I want us to look at this morning. First one is take care of myself. These are ways to resist Satan. And I know that sounds a little bit funny because we think about this idea of Christianity and Jesus says what? You be a servant to other people. You go out, you put down your life for others before self. That whole idea. And I'm coming here right out of the gate this morning and saying what we need to do is make sure we take care of ourselves. But it's kind of like the FAA. You know, for those of us who've been on a plane, they go through that little spiel, right? If this plane starts to crash, then what are you supposed to do? Make sure you secure your own oxygen mask, right? Why? Because there are those people who are around me, and I need to assist them if I'm laid out because I didn't secure my own oxygen mask. I'm not going to be able to help anyone around me, right? Now, there's a lot to be said there. I'm always like James Gregory, the comedian. He's like, you know, you always talk about these flotation devices. He said, I usually just fly in the United States. He said, I don't fly over a whole lot of water. He said, so I don't necessarily need to know what's going to float in the water. I need to know what's going to cushion me in a cornfield when we crash in Kansas. But the whole idea there is that you got that mask, you put it on, and hopefully you can help those around to be able to secure their mask and survive if this plane crashes. And what I want you to think about here is, this is the same with the Christian walk. See, if you're out of the race, if you're not doing what you ought to be doing for God, if you're not taking care of yourself first, what good is it going to do anyone else? See, I've got to make sure that I'm fed. I've got to make sure that I'm getting what I need every day so that I will stay in the race. Because if I'm sitting at the house and I say, yeah, I used to be a Christian. Yeah, I guess I'm a Christian. Yeah, I'm a Christian on Sunday or on Christmas. That's just a great thing to do. Then I'm kind of out of the game. And if I'm not taking care of myself, what am I giving you? I read this article last night that said, why are people not wanting to go to church today? It said no matter where you are and what denomination you're within, numbers are falling. People don't want to go to church. And it goes back and says, well, you look back in the 40s and 50s and 60s when church was booming, and church was a huge social thing. But guess what? It's not a social thing anymore because most of us have a whole lot on our calendar that we don't need. And we don't need one more social thing. I don't need to come here for the social aspects of it, right? If people are going to come to church today, it's going to be for one reason. You know what that is? Because they see Jesus. I've got to go and get Jesus. I've got to go and get me some of my church family. I've got to go and pick up some things that are going to help me in my walk from day to day. And that's what this has got to be about. It's got to be about a refueling, people coming in, talking, people encouraging each other, understanding that we are here, not so we can, hey, how's it going? How's the Braves? How's the weather? Everything's good. But so I can say, hey, man, let me tell you how God's blessing me. Hey, man, I need you to pray for me because I'm really struggling right here. The community idea of people being drawn to something that's different. Why are we different? Because we choose to live like Jesus. Let's consider Ephesians chapter 6. Now let's think about this whole idea of taking care of yourself as we read these passages here, beginning in verse 10. A final word, be strong in the Lord and in His mighty power. Put on all of God's armor so that you will be able to stand firm against all strategies of the devil. For we are not fighting against flesh and blood enemies, but against evil rulers and authorities in the unseen world, against mighty powers in this dark world, and against evil spirits in the heavenly places. Therefore, put on every piece of God's armor, so you will be able to resist the enemy in the time of evil. Then after the battle, you will still be standing firm. Stand your ground, putting on the belt of truth and the body armor of God's righteousness. For shoes, put on the peace that comes from the good news, so that you will be fully prepared. In addition to all these things, hold up the shield of faith to stop the fiery arrows of the devil. Put on salvation as your helmet and take the sword of the Spirit, which is the Word of God. Pray in the Spirit at all times and on every occasion. Stay alert and be persistent in your prayers for all believers everywhere. Now all of these things that we just talked about in this passage give instructions about what? About what you should do. The armor's available, but you got to take it. You got to put it on yourself. I mean, it's out there. It's available to you. But it's up to you how you go into battle. I mean, the fact of the matter is, some of us are going out every day, and we're getting beaten up, right? Satan's wearing us out. He's killing us. And what are we doing about it? Well, I'm going to go out here, and I'll tell you what, I got a little shield right here. And we go out there, and we don't have anything else to protect us. We go out by ourselves. We're not in an army of people. And we expect something different other than defeat. When we're not doing what we can to make sure that we're putting on the armor that God has told us to put on. I want us to notice a couple of specifics from Ephesians chapter 6. First of all, it says, put on the whole armor. Now you think about this idea in your mind. What comes to mind? I think about this, the 10, soldiers back in the day. You see every part of them is covered. Maybe the knight. You go out and they're doing their thing, but you look, no part of them is not covered in steel. And that's kind of the idea here, is putting on this armor, which is what? The things of Jesus. Are you putting on more of Jesus every day that you live? Are you getting up and saying, okay, I'm going to pick up some joy here. I'm going to pick up some peace. I'm going to pick up some mercy. I'm going to pick up grace. And I'm going to put those things on me. When we cover ourselves with what God provides, then that's all the way through. It's not that we do it 99% and say, okay, right here in this one area, I'm going to kind of pick up what the world tells me to pick up. It says completely cover yourself in God. Now, you think on this for just a moment. I remember a buddy of mine a long time ago. There was this guy that I knew that he led singing in one of the churches close to where I grew up. And we were talking one day, and my buddy worked with that guy. And he said, how do you know him? I said, well, he goes to church. He's like, man, that guy's the biggest hypocrite in the world. And I was like, what? I said, man, he seems like a really good guy. He's always involved in the youth stuff, and he leads singing. He's a deacon in that church. He said, man, I work with that guy every day. He said, he makes terrible comments about all the pretty women that we work with. He's got a foul mouth. He said, everything that comes out of his mouth is bad. Now, I don't know, maybe that was his area of struggle. I know this, he had me fooled. I looked at him in the outside and I thought, this is a pretty good fellow. But then this other guy comes in and says, what? No, he's fooled you. Now, that may be the only area that he struggled with. But according to my buddy, guess what? He did not fully put on, he did not put on the full armor of God, because it may be in 99% of the areas of his life he was doing a really good job of living for God, but his language, what came out of his mouth, was not consistent with who God is. So when we put him on, it's got to be complete. It's got to be a complete covering, all from God. I think about Iron Man. I don't know if any of y'all watched that movie or not, but I like that movie, and I think about the way Iron Man looks when he goes into battle. And that's the way we ought to go into life every day, looking like God in that Iron Man suit as we go out and fight for him every day. But instead of having that armor on, people look at us and see Jesus in every aspect. They see the things of God covering us, protecting us. Second thing I want to look at from Ephesians chapter 6 is stand your ground. We got to be ready right now. We got to resist every attack that comes our way and not allow even just the smallest thing to pass us by. I don't know how many of you have seen the War Room movie, but it's a wonderful movie. And Kevin and I are working on some stuff, and we're going to do some prayer things at the end of the summer, probably mid-August. We're going to do about 6 weeks on prayer, and then we're going to watch that movie and kind of do our small groups along with prayer and all that. But one of the things that I was really encouraged by in that movie is there's just these two characters in there, and once they start praying, they just start kind of walking around their house. God, this is my territory. Help me to claim it from Satan. Satan, you get out of my house. Satan, you are not welcome here. You're not welcome in my marriage. You're not welcome in the relationship I have with my children. Just walking around rebuking Satan in that sense. Now, You go through this and say, is that person capable of rebuking Satan? No, not on their own. But once again, what power do we have within us? The power of the Holy Spirit. And with the power of the Holy Spirit within us, God over Satan, God's always going to win. So we need to get into the habit of doing such things. And people are going to think we're crazy? Maybe so. But that's okay, because I know this. If you think I'm crazy, but I'm able to live closer to God, I'm all right with what you think about me. But I know this, I get tired of Satan wearing me out. I get tired of Satan treating me in a disrespectful way, coming into my home, doing things he has no business doing. What am I doing to stand up to him? What am I doing to make sure that I'm putting him out? So I want to encourage you to claim your land, claim your place, your home, your marriage. Understand, help Satan understand that if he comes in, he can expect a fight. Now, all these things mentioned in chapter 6 of Ephesians have one thing in common. And I cannot reiterate this enough. They are things that you are supposed to do. Not things that will be done for you. It is your responsibility to take care of yourself spiritually. Not your mom's, your dad, your family. It's not the church's responsibility. It is your responsibility to know God, to follow him. The first way we do that is by resisting Satan, by taking care of ourselves. Second thing I want us to look at is turn to each other. You look at Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12, and this is the passage we noticed last week, and it follows in the passage that we're sharing again this week. For we are not fighting against flesh and blood enemies, but against evil rulers and authorities in the unseen world, against mighty powers in this dark world, and against evil spirits in the heavenly places. And since this is a spiritual fight and not a fleshly fight, then we got to see it that way. And we got to stop doing what we can in the kingdom, not just this church, but in the kingdom in general. We got to stop fighting each other. Man, how many churches pick on another church down the road, or how many brothers and sisters can't get along, and as a result of that, we're having this fleshly fight, and it's hurting the body in general. We got to start seeing this fight for what it is. Turn from man, turn from the church, see the enemy for who he really is, and let's start doing what we can to combine our efforts and get on him. Instead of devouring each other, let's comfort each other. Let's love each other. Let's be there for each other. And let's understand where these issues are coming from. Here at the church at Rome, we try to place an emphasis on the importance of relationship, the importance of being in relationship with each other. So, we encourage people to be in a small group. Why? Because you can go, you can love each other, you can be there for one another, you can comfort each other, you can pray for each other. It's that idea of community. What about Sunday mornings? Well, the same thing is the case here. You know, I don't know where all of us are on Sunday, but we may come in here in a great state of mind, but I don't think that's the case for us every week. And we have opportunities every week where we have our prayer partners in the back, and we have people down here, and our shepherds are available. And man, we ought to use this. If you got a burden, we ought to come here on Sunday and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to lay this before my church this morning. I'm going to let you know where I am in life, and I want you to be there for me. I want you to be able to be someone that I can turn to, that I can know is going to bring me some comfort, going to bring me some hope. So are you doing that? Are you turning to the church family, doing what you can to let them help you? Man, I need this body big time. I need prayer. You look at what the Bible says in Matthew chapter 6, verse 13, as it pertains to this idea of what we're talking about with this spiritual war. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. I need your help in praying me through situations in life where I can be delivered from the evil one. Then, of course, Ephesians 6:18 in the passage we're looking at this morning, pray in the Spirit at all times and on every occasion. How many times do we see someone in the grocery store, or when someone passes by the house, or someone calls us on the phone and says, hey, I need you to pray for me. All right, well, I will. Take it easy. Good to see you next time. Do we follow up with them? Do we ever really pray about those situations? I want you to go a little bit further with this because that's just part of the verse. I want us to see what the last sentence in this verse says. It's not a situation where you're just praying for yourself, but you need to pray for others. Look at this one more time. Pray in the Spirit at all times, on every occasion. Stay alert and, what does it say? Be persistent in your prayer for all believers everywhere. So see, when I'm doing this, when I'm turning to you and you're turning to me, and we're praying for each other, we're helping each other to stay in this fight. We're helping each other to fight against Satan every day. So the world doesn't really pray. Why should they? God's not really their concern. But one of the things that bothers me, this 30 years in the kingdom now, literally, I bet I can count 20, 30 people maybe in my life that I've met out of thousands and thousands of Christians when I've said, hey, I need your prayers. And when we finish that conversation, you know what they say? We're going to do it right here, man. Before you go, I want to pray with you right here. Before I let you go on the phone, I want to pray with you on, man, that's weird. Who prays on the phone? It might be weird. But once again, what do you want? Satan to wear you out? Are you to be able to walk in harmony with God? So what I'm saying to us is, seize those opportunities. When people come to you and lay their life out before you and they see you as someone they can turn to, understand, what are we doing? We're showing them Jesus. They're attracted to us for a reason, obviously. Just, hey man, let's step over here in the corner. Let's step in my office for a second. I want to pray with you. And then a day or two later, if you'll follow up, you're in, man. You're the king, Hey, this guy right here, he's just like Jesus. But that's what I want us to think about. Turning to each other. And not just because that's what we're supposed to do. Because, hey, this Sunday morning, people are supposed to be at church this morning, right? Hey, Christians are supposed to pray. That's what we're supposed to do. But if we take it to the next level and make it a practice that we participate in every day, not only are we helping ourselves, but we're helping our brothers and sisters stay in the game. Let's turn to each other. Let's put the focus where it should go. That's on Satan, helping us understand, hey, he's the problem here, not the flesh and blood. And let's do what we can to wear him out together. As we enter into this last point, there's two words that I want us to notice here before we reveal the last point. And that is in Ephesians chapter 6, verse 18. It says, stay alert. Stay alert. Beware of every circumstance that you find yourself within. I think one of the most overlooked ways that Satan gets to us, one of the most overlooked ways we fail to stay alert, is through our thoughts. And I want us to talk about that. That's our final point here. Guard your thoughts. Let's go to James chapter 1 here. Verse 12 says, God blesses those who patiently endure testing and temptation. Afterward, they will receive the crown of life that God has promised to those who love him. And remember, when you are being tempted, do not say, God has tempted me. God is never tempted to do wrong, and he never tempts anyone else. Now look at 14. This is where we're going to put it all together. Temptation comes from our own desires, which entice us and drag us away. These desires give birth to sinful actions, and when sin is allowed to grow, it gives birth to death. So there's a sequence here. Your thought, action, sin, and death. It starts with what? It starts with your desire, your thought, right? All right, and that's where we got to start saying, okay, when something comes into my mind, I'm praying right there. It's going to be over. Because if not, it's going to lead me to committing some kind of action, which is going to lead to me sinning. And at some point, if I continue to sin over and over and over again, it's going to lead to death. But so many times, death comes from what? A thought. Does Satan influence us in this area? Of course he does. I'll show you one example right here on the screen. You know? I mean, that's where we are, right? And we're here, but man, that green grass looks really, really, really good. Satan's guy to say, man, I want you to see this. See what you could have. Man, this is going to be awesome. It's kind of like I always, excuse me for this, but it just is what it is. Me and Chris will be somewhere, and we'll see a guy that's like 65, and then have a girl that's like 30, and I say, she's the leather seats. When you go and get into the car, what is it? Custom upgrade is the leather seats, right? So I said, she's the leather seats. That's what I don't get about it. A 30-year-old, she's going to get old one of these days, And I'm sitting here thinking, like, at 42, I got some buddies that have been divorced, and they're maybe dating a girl that's like 20 or 22, and I'm like, what do you talk about? I'm in a place where I don't know that I really could relate. But here's the thing that I ultimately think about. You trade it in for the looks, and then all of a sudden, at one point, that guy, guess what? He's not going to have abs anymore. He's going to have a keg, right? He's not going to have a six-pack. And the ladies, sure, that she was beautiful, and all your buddies were like, man, that's a pretty girl. I can't believe he left his wife, but she's pretty. But at some point, she's going to get up. We're all heading in the same direction. The earthly body's going to die. It's going to give up. It's going to wear out. And I don't understand what's so appealing about some of this stuff to so many of us. But what I want us to think about for just a moment is, you got this here and now, and then you got the greener grass, but this is what ends up happening to us a lot of times when we go for that greener grass. That's the way life ends up a lot of times, because we choose to get in there and think about what Satan is going to lay out there before us. We reach for it, and then we find ourselves in a tough situation. But I want you to think for just a moment about how many things that really get us into trouble really start with a thought. On Friday, what was due? Taxes. See, the thing is, I don't really have to turn this in. I don't really have to claim this. All right? And sometimes you don't. But is it the right thing to do? I always take my stuff up there to my lady, and I say, hey, if there's anything that's questionable, kick it out. I don't want us to be on the front page of the wrong news, But you think about this, how many people are in jail right now for tax evasion, but it goes back to one little thing that they decided they were going to skip. Then the next year, 2 or 3 more. Then next year, and then all of a sudden, 10 years into this thing, they're taking all kind of cuts. Well, what did it start with? A thought. Well, surely, he knows I'm married. What's a thought? I'm about to give him a piece of my mind. It's a thought, something you think about. If I have this argument, this is what I'm going to do. All these things are thoughts at that point. And all can go no further than that. And the sin is avoided. But when we fail to stop the thought, it leads to action, which leads us to sin. And then sin many times leads us to some form of death. How many of us have suffered some kind of death here on this planet because of our sin? How many of us have a bad reputation in some aspect because of some sin we committed? How many of us have suffered death in our marriage relationship because of some sin that we committed? You go on and on. Character. You're a person of character, but your character's been hurt because of something that you could have stopped that thought process. Sin avoided. See, what happens a lot of times is we get caught up in these things and we don't stop it at the thought process, and we start to sin, and we get a little bit more involved and a little bit more involved, and we find ourselves caught up in a lifestyle of sin. And what ultimately happens is we find ourselves totally disconnected from God, totally disconnected from His people, totally disconnected from the church, because we face death and death and death. And the beautiful thing about it is, no matter how far we get into sin, God will always allow us to come back to Him. Amen. But how many people don't? How many people don't because they started out in some small area, some small thought, that they never turned over to God? And they will leave this earth and spend eternity separated from God. Why? Because of some thought that started a long time ago, that led to this, that led to this, that led to this. I got a buddy that's a recovering drug addict. He's about 10 years clean. I said, what was your issue? He said, when I was 12, I started lying. I said, how does that connect? He said, I don't know, man. He said, but that's where it is for me. He said, I didn't do drugs until I was like 15, 16 years old. He said, but I lied about this, and I lied about that, and I lied about this, and that just started a lifestyle for me. One thing led to another, and he spent a ton of his adult years doing some really dumb things. But where did it start? He didn't tell you where it started. What I want us to understand is, Satan's going to give us a hard time every day. And some of the reasons that we allow him to continue to give us a hard time is because we're not controlling our thoughts. Hey, you're worthless. Hey, you're a loser. Hey, I'll never be anything in this life. Who's telling you that? Well, my mom told me that. My coach told me. No, Satan told you that. You think about the thoughts, how important it is for us to stay in the game, and we got to start doing what we can to resist Satan. How much resistance are you showing him right now? Satan is a coward. He will flee from us when we resist him, if we resist him. So I want to ask us to do something kind of like my buddy John up here does sometimes. With God's help, I will. That's what I want to ask you to say this morning with me. In just a moment, I'm going to say, okay, will you start to try to live a life where you rebuke Satan every day? Will you start to try to do what you can to turn to God for everything that you need? That's the idea there. These vows that they take up here and then they kind of go through. It's a similar thing for us. Maybe we don't take vows, but the idea is, what are you going to do with this power that you have within you? Will you rebuke Satan? So let's say it together. With God's help, I will. Will you rebuke Satan? With God's help, I will. And folks, that's what I want us to leave this series with, this idea. Oh, we're out here. It's going on. It's a spiritual journey. It's a spiritual fight. Satan is going to wear us out every day. But God has his angels in place. God has his people in place who are going to love us, who are going to surround us. And we're not going into war alone. If we will take advantage of the God who lives within us, the body he's placed us within, we'll be able to resist Satan in a better way. Why? Because of what we do? Sure, in one sense. But also because of what God will help us do. If you're outside of a relationship with Jesus today, we'd love to be able to talk to you about that, baptize you into Jesus. Or if you brought a burden with you today, we got the prayer partners in the back, we're in the front. We'd love to be able to sit here and talk to you, pray with you, do what we can to help you while we stand.